Why Liz Truss?
Well, I weighed up everything. I didn't declare early. I only declared at the last moment, really, when I'd made my mind up, having spoken to pretty much every candidate. I took part in a very close session of interrogation in which the candidates, each of them, was subjected to nearly 50 minutes of questioning.
Gosh.
So unlike some of the hustings that have been going on where you get 10 minutes or 15 minutes, this was very serious stuff. And on the balance of the way they answered and on their demeanour and what they thought about the future of the country, then I went for Liz. I thought she had a wider sense about where we should be than many of the others. And it wasn't just about narrow issues, you said, about tax cutting. It was about the economy. It was about the wider issues of who's being excluded and how to be able to bring them back into play, as it were, within the economy to be able to aspire to do better things. And she also has a track record of having been in serious departments of government, running those, understanding how government works, because whoever we select, whatever else our likes or dislikes of individuals, and I've tried to suspend those, I've looked for who do I think will develop, but who arrives at least ready-made as somebody you know can govern as a prime minister from day one. We don't have time for them, as we would if you're electing a leader of the opposition, to develop into that job in the way that they would need to. They have to arrive ready to go, literally as their feet hit the ground in Downing Street. And I think that means experience matters probably more than in most sort of leadership elections.
So on that basis, really, that would be Liz Truss, who's the Foreign Secretary, or it would be Rishi Sunak, who was the Chancellor. You know, those two fit the bill of what you've said there. But they are obviously on very different sides of the argument when it comes to tax. Rishi Sunak says, I'm not going to cut taxes until the economy recovers, until inflation comes down. Liz Truss says that she would reverse the national insurance rate rise. She wants to lower corporation tax, and she wants to decrease regulation kind of elsewhere within the economy. But Rishi Sunak's idea of being cautious, isn't that sensible, dyed-in-the-wool Conservative policy?
Well, no, I don't think actually there's that much between the candidates, ironically. Once you strip away all the fireworks, what do you ask for? That is to say that the Conservative Party does recognise that a productive society is one that the state takes less money off, but at the same time does less, but also does it far better. And I think you'll find most of the candidates saying that. I think the difference here is what do we do now and how pressing is the cost of living crisis right now facing us? I think it's more urgent than Rishi Sunak makes out. I think that the bank let us down badly over a year ago when they kept printing money, which, by the way, the Treasury then signed off, hundreds of millions of pounds, which inflated the economy even further and didn't do anything about interest rates. So the result of that failure is that we're having to get there quicker with interest rates. But, and this is the important but, we're actually in the middle of that inflationary crisis, which means cost of living is affecting families often on marginal and low incomes, particularly who haven't had any savings. And so we need to help them now. Now, we've done a package, which I applaud, of helping the poorest, which the IFS said pretty much stabilizes them. But those who are in what I would say lower tax, and many who have been dragged into upper rate tax by the freezing of the thresholds, they're being very badly affected. And I think it's very important to recognize many of them who are working hard trying to support families, they need to have some support. So tax reduction isn't about a glib question and answer. It is actually trying to help people to do better. And we have the headroom, by the way. The Treasury is completely wrong on this. You know, the forecast for where the Treasury would be in their tax receipts over the last 2 years is out by about 180 billion pounds. And that's because they've got far more receipts coming in than they expected. And they get windfall taxes without even the North Sea one from higher inflation at the pump. So much of that can be used to help those on low and marginal incomes, particularly those, I say, on lower income tax.
So is Rishi Sunak operating on numbers that are not correct?
I think there's a Treasury orthodoxy which is in play here, which doesn't matter whether you're a Labour government or a Conservative government, has got this consistently wrong over the years. One of the reasons why we have literally growth at lower levels than we should have done since the great economic crash is because the way that the Treasury is set up and this so-called independence of the bank, it just doesn't work. And so the result of all of that is that the politicians themselves have to take the information that's given off the forecast from the AVR, which, by the way, have been wrong almost on every single occasion, and set policy. What we say is you've got to move quickly when events demand it. And here is the problem. We have the headroom. We have the headroom to make those changes. And I don't think we should be putting these things off. I think when you know that there is a significant issue affecting people's incomes, you have to move. And so tax is a significant part of that. VAT, fuel at the pumps, all these things are things we can move on very quickly.
Okay, just finally, you've said that you need someone in place as a Prime Minister who's ready from day one, who has the experience, and I hear that. However, it looks like Conservative Party members, when they are polled, really seem to like the look of someone who doesn't fit the bill, and that's Penny Mordaunt. Now, she's also done very well in the ballots. Rishi Sunak, 88, Penny Mordaunt, 67, and Liz Truss, who you're backing, in third place on 50. Now, again, things can change, but how worried are you about the threat, not the threat, that's not the right word, but the emergence of Penny Mordaunt and what that might do for Liz Truss's chances?
Well, I'm never worried about these things. And the one thing I do say with respect to all of you in the media is you never understand what these leadership elections are really, how they work and what they're about. The shifting around in between the different votes is what really helps. And what's going on at the moment is there are three candidates in a very similar position who are holding a very significant number of votes between them. Now, the question mark is, where do they go over the next two votes? And so when I stood for leader, I remember many years ago, I was second to last. And Portillo was about to be crowned king. And Ken Clarke it was either him or Ken Clarke. In fact, I actually came through and defeated Michael Portillo at the time. And that's because what people started to do is to assess what they wanted rather than who they were against.
But the Conservative Party members, the polling of them suggests that she would beat everyone.
Well, the polling of party members, you will find, is quite intriguing because it shifts around once they see them.
Okay.
So the reality is that they'll have to go out and pitch toward them, and they'll have to make these choices. But you know what? I just don't recall that we elect governments by polling. We do actually end up elected by votes, and there's a reason for that, which is the polling at the last election and the run-up to it got it mostly wrong, except for one pollster. So my general sense is it's a campaign. And you ask people to think about what they really want. And I think that's what's going on. And I'm not fearful of anybody in the Conservative Party standing for leader. I would happily accept any of them. But I do say that they need to be properly tested and they need to answer questions correctly. And I think that is yet to probably happen.